What we have here is the 1989 Mustang LX by GMP Models. And this model is a model that's been modified in reality by Detroit Speed Shops. Detroit Speed Shop is a aftermarket, mainly a suspension tuner. They sell a lot of components to update your early 60s all the way to your late 80s muscle car into a track beast, basically. And that's what we have here today. This is something new that GMP started doing with these 5-liter Mustangs, and having, instead of just the stock cars or the specialized ones, having these particular cars that are actually street cars that have been modified. Some of these you would probably see from early Mustang publications. So the other thing that, as I spin this around, that you may notice is the suspension, the wheels itself. And if I turn this angle here, you will see that the wheels actually have some camber in it. And again, that's pretty evident. And you can clearly see it as you look at the wheel well and see how much lower the front end is versus the rear. And again, that's because of that camber that's in place. So there is some lean versus the front and the back. As far as the engine goes, I don't see anything except for the headers that had actually been modified on this particular model. Beyond that, the wheels are aftermarket wheels, and they're actually very notorious aftermarket wheels. These wheels are a very well-known and very popular wheel back in the day for Mustangs, with their silver lip and spoke that you see on here. The other thing you'll notice is that the center hubs are black. That's GMP's way of showing it, minus the center caps. These cars are generally road raced, and so that center cap would usually be taken off due to that. When they're road raced, the center caps have a tendency to pop off, so a lot of folks would just take them off to avoid that altogether. The overall shape of this model is pretty good. GMP has been using the same mold over and over again for this particular model, and they probably will continue as long as there's enough variations for them to actually produce in model form. If we turn to the front of the model, you'll see that the headlights have been duplicated very accurately to the real car. The only thing that is actually missing is the sense of transparency. This was definitely a cost-cutting measure, and that GMP just decided to use a paint that has some clarity to it, or some transparency to it, but not enough to see the bulbs behind the paint. And again, I think that was a cost cutting. They do look good. I do like that you can see the grade or grid of the lens, but again, it'd be nice if we could actually see beyond that lens and see the bulbs. Moving on to the back of the model, the tail lenses are duplicated very accurately to the real thing. This definitely reminds me of my car. And the lenses, again, there is some transparency, not enough to see the bulbs behind it, but definitely better than the fronts. The color is very accurate. I really do like that a lot. And I'm glad, and I wish this would have been duplicated in the front a little more accurately, but yeah, these look very good. It's a fully opening model, so that means that the doors and the trunk and hood do open on this model. There is no door windows, so all you'd simply do is stick your finger through. And then, of course, you have the trunk, just push up. And the hood. And there you are. Wheels and brake combination, and as you can see, it's pretty basic, nothing special there. Again, I do like the fact that this being a modified car as opposed to being stock, you can see how low the tire is in relation to the fender well. So it is a lowered car, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you can see that, but you can definitely see the wedge there, as again, this is a slightly cambered in front wheel. You have the brake disc, and you do have a painted caliper. And of course you have the iconic 5.0 there, nice and prominent. And look at the flake in that paint. It's very pretty. The interior is very clean, and the clarity on it is very good. So what I mean by clarity is you zoom in, the vents, for example, you can definitely see the pattern there, and it has some depth in its 3D. I really like that. The dials are very clear as well. And you have that shifter with the leather boot. You have your handbrake. On the dashboard you do have the horse and stripe, which is very iconic again for this particular car. I'm glad it was included and not left out. On the other side you have the steering wheel with the Ford on the hub, which is very accurate to the real car. The gauge cluster, again, very accurate to the real car. The pedals look like the real deal, which is great. This definitely brings back some memories. The seat is pretty standard. It's not the best reproduction of the seat, but it is a leather seat. You have the flocking or carpeting all throughout. Door card has the obligatory flocking at the bottom, which is accurate to the real deal. This is a roll down window. This is a molded piece, as you can see. Nothing too crazy there. There are some missing elements on this. For example, the door lock pin, if you want to call it that, it's missing. Under the trunk lid, not too much to see. You have your carpeting. These hinges, you would think they were dog legs, but that's actually how the real car is. So if you want to call them dog legs, that's what they were at the time. You have the prominent LX, which is exactly what model this car was at the time, and the Ford on the other side. Most of the engine detail is present here. There are obviously some missing elements. This is a much neater engine bay than the actual real car. Even if you could capture all the elements of what was missing, you probably wouldn't, because it'd be a big mess. The prominent intake is accurate to the real thing. I really like that, and it definitely brings back a lot of memories of the days of my 5.0. We have these headers on the side. I love the ignition wires that are going to the spark plugs. The header is nice and chromed headers. If you're familiar with 5.0s, as soon as you put them on, let the car run for a few hours, you drive it, they discolor right away, which is typical of stainless steel anyway. But I always love putting that out, because when I had mine, I actually got the ceramic coated because I like them to look at least clean, and the ceramic coated ones definitely looked the part. But yeah, everything that you'd expect out of the engine bay is there. Is it perfect? Of course not. These lines here, these are more or less molded in, and they look like it. So instead of having a sense of separation, there's nothing like that there. This is the actual vacuum tee. You only have one line going to it. It should have several. But again, I would not expect a car at this price point to have all of the details. Again, these are the actual these are not dog legs. This is not a cost-cutting thing. This is actually how the hinges look on the 5.0 Mustang. You zoom in closer and you can get a glimpse of the belt. And the cool thing is that it's an actual rubber belt. I did not expect that from a model at this price point, but it actually has the accessory belt. It's a really nice feature. The other thing that you can slightly see is the fan right there. So that's what that is, of course, because it says warning because of fan. That's what that caution is there. That's the fan shroud. But yeah, just a fan there as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this model by Acme or GMP. The reason why I keep saying that is because Acme and GMP are basically the same company. Have been for a few years. This model is really great at its price point. This is a budget model. And the thing that's a little confusing about GMP is that they will produce something like this at a budget price, and then on the other hand, they'll have something extremely detailed that's over $300 sometimes. It just depends on, you know, what they're going to do with this specific mold. And I say this specific mold because this is a fairly old mold that they're reusing over and over again. They just found a new idea to use this mold for some more updated or recent or current modified Mustangs that have been out there in the wild. These are Mustangs that you would see in the publications like 5.0 or Fords and Fast Mustangs. This one in particular is Detroit Speed, and this particular car was definitely all suspension mods. None of the engine mods translated over to this car. I am not fully familiar with this actual car, but it definitely is a real car. The wheels are a very common aftermarket wheel that most people who are in the 5.0 space know of these wheels, so that's not too surprising. I like that there was some camber that was added into the front to show that this car definitely was lowered and the suspension was modified. This model retails for about $140, and it shows. There are definitely some missing elements from this car, but this is great for someone who wants a pretty darn good representation of either something that they had in the past or memories of the past, or something to complement their current 5.0 Mustang. Please like and subscribe. That's the best way I'm going to know you're enjoying these videos. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you next time.